Alright, we've been working on this model, and we put in some design options last time, and so now I want to talk about displaced views. So we have this 3D view here, and I want to make another one and use it as a displaced view. So I'm going to select this, right click on it, duplicate it, and duplicate, and then I'm going to rename it. And I'm just going to name it 3D Displace. We'll do okay. So we're in the main model right now, and since I'm in a parallel view, I can actually select the pieces that I want to displace. And really what I want to do is make a view that looks a little bit like that. We're going to do it in parallel first, and then I'll do it in perspective. Okay. So if I come in and I get rid of exclude options check, I can pick various pieces of the model, even if they're in other options. So I could pick this roof, and I can do what's called a displace elements. So I can click on displace elements, and it will let me displace that element up like 20 feet. And it's not going to move it in the rest of the model, it's just going to move it in this view only. And so then I can pick the beams, which is right there, and I could displace those, and I can move those up in the Z by like 15 feet, right? Maybe this one gets a little higher. Let's take it up to 30, right? And then what I want to do is, we could hide the rest of the model. So for example, if I came in and windowed around everything that's not in the options, so I could say exclude options, and this will window around everything in the main model, and I can right click on it, and I can go to hide in view elements, right? And now all I have in this view is the floors and the walls, and I'm going to override the transparency of the walls in the visibility graphics, so somewhere around 60, and click OK. And so now we have sort of this displaced view where you can see the columns coming up out of the columns and the roof coming up out of the model, and it's a little bit more of a sort of diagrammatic view. Now I can go in and turn on my crop region and make sure that it's cropping the view. And if I pick that, it'll tell me how big that is, and it's right now 8 1/4 by 10 3/4, and that's based on the size of the scale. So at 1/8 of an inch, that's how big that is. Now, if I were to go to option 1, right, I could actually displace option 1 in here as well. So I could come in and actually add a displace on that and do a similar thing. So I could just go to 30 feet for that. I can get those columns being a little, and then that one was a displace of 15 feet. Right, so now I have a similar displacement. Now the window's kind of in there, so if I want to zoom around, I can do that, but just be aware that if you go back to the main model, it's also going to affect that view, right? So that's a parallel displaced view, but let's do a perspective one. So I'm going to come into my site plan view, and I'm just going to make a 3-dimensional view sort of from this direction right here. So I'm going to go to View, 3D View, and Camera. And I'm going to have a camera, and I'm just going to look in this direction, right? And then maybe I'll zoom in on it, just like that. And then I'll close. And I'll zoom out a little bit, and maybe we want to push this guy up. All right. So I'm in the main model now, and when you're in perspective, you don't get that check. It kind of limits what you can do. So I'm going to go to my option 2 primary, And it will still allow me when I'm in there to select pieces and displace them. So you just have to go to the option, and you have to have everything in the option that you want to displace. So I'm going to displace this by, we were doing like, maybe let's do 40 for that. And then I'll pick this and we'll displace that and do 20. Right? And then I'll go back and I'll go to the main model and I'll window around everything and I'll right click and go to hide in view elements. Right? And so now I've got that. Pull this up a little bit, maybe pull my crop box in a little bit. And then I can go to a shaded view if I want to. I can turn on the sun, go to sun settings, and maybe just have it come from the top left, right? So it's showing that. You could also come in and override the walls like we did before, the transparency of the walls. So I'll just go to the walls and override the transparency. Click OK, click OK. Oh, did it not do it? Maybe I'm just losing my mind. Oh, I did the windows. Whoops. Clear override. Do the walls this time. Click OK, click OK. So now we've got the transparent walls, and you're seeing something similar. Now, you can always go in and change things like override graphics in view by element if you wanted to, and change the color of things like the surface pattern of that roof. I'll just turn it blue. Right, so now it's blue. You could do the same things for that, you know, like if you wanted that to be override graphics in view by element. You could do visibility graphics as well, but I'll do this red and solid just to show you. Right, so now you have this these different things working, and you have a sort of exploded view of that. You can also do things in here, like if you pick this, it'll give you a path, you know, from where it was if you want to do that. It has that little path option. But in here, it just draws little lines for you. So that's up to you. But that's displaced view. And now in here, if I'm in the main model, right, let me go ahead and rename this, be a little bit more. So 3D, this will be a perspective displace. Now if I go to my option 2 primary, or sorry, option 1, right, I can displace this as well, right? So I can just go in and basically do the same thing. So I'm going to pick that and displace that by 20 feet. Right, and now I believe the roof is off. Yeah, so I'm going to go in there and unhide in view category, and then displace that up to 40 feet. So now you've got that guy, and if you're in option 1, it does that, and then if you're in option 2 primary, it does that. So I'm going to go back to main model, and I'll hit save on this. So that's displacing things, and just to show you, to make sure that you're aware, like the rest of the model is not displaced, right? It's just those 2 views that are displaced. So if I go to option 1, we're still going there and main model. All right, so next time I think we're going to do a little rendering in the cloud with the options.